You're listening to the Wayward Atheist Podcast. Hello, everyone. If this is your first time listening, thank you for joining us. This is a podcast where borders collide, where the gloves are off, where filters are removed, where we tell you exactly what we think about the news, politics, and religion. The Wayward Atheist Podcast is dedicated to free thought, reason, and the pursuit of truth. You can follow us on Twitter at Wayward Atheist, on Spreaker, Stitcher, and iTunes. You can email us at waywardatheistpodcast@gmail.com or leave us a comment on our Facebook page. So without further ado, let's get on with the show.
This week's episode of The Wayward Atheist has been brought to you by the Crafty Freethinker. Tired of boring old jewelry and charms? Why not wear a motherfucking T-Rex around your neck? Or a pendant of the Scarlet A? Handmade, secular, and science jewelry from the Crafty Freethinker gives you a nice alternative to boring old jewelry. Find the Crafty Freethinker on Etsy and Amazon. Links are in the show notes, or simply Google the Crafty Freethinker as one word. Hello and welcome to the Wayward Atheist Podcast. I'm Dave, aka the Great White North.
I'm Corey, aka the Yank.
I'm Big Black Gay Dave.
And I'm Ed, the Everyday Atheist.
And this afternoon we are joined by...
Who? I'm in suspense. Who are you joined by?
Fucking Thomas and the Bible.
Okay. That's right.
That Thomas Smith guy from like 3 podcasts or 10, something like that.
Yeah, too many. However many it is, it's too many podcasts.
Seriously, I don't know how you have 3 podcasts. It's insane. You're a madman.
Yeah.
But
that's
yes, we're
true.
joined by Thomas Smith from Atheistically Speaking, Thomas and the Bible, and Comedy Shoeshine.
That's right.
I'm so fucking excited to have you on. Your podcasts are all really solid.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. You're making me excited.
My favorite.
Oh, really?
Because I don't know, because I really appreciate the research you put into it, and the fact that you're willing to really look into both sides of issues. That's the one thing that really stands out, which makes your podcast way up on my list.
Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate hearing that. That's certainly what I'm going for. And it's good to hear that somebody else likes it.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, this is the second podcast for us this weekend. It's an afternoon edition, and we thought it was important to change our schedule to get Thomas on. So we'll jump right into the interview. And I've got some real fucking brain busters for you here, okay, Tom?
Oh, great. I like that you emphasize that you changed everything around for me. That's good. Get me on the back foot. Yeah, sorry.
You're that important to
No, that was a compliment.
Okay.
That was not a backhanded compliment.
No. When I said that, I was like, all right, guys, I got Thomas Smith, but he can't do Friday nights. We're making this happen. Fuckers,
wait, you guys are Canadians, right?
I'm not.
Well,
3 of us
are.
Well, I can't do Friday nights because I play hockey on Friday nights. Come on, that's got to have some amount of currency.
You do get some currency, but just so you know, we've only ever changed our recording time for 2 shows, you and Cognitive Dissonance. So.
Oh, what? Yeah, okay. Well, I don't think they play hockey, so they don't have as good.
No, I don't think. I think the ice would break if they decided to play hockey.
And they hate Canadians so much. I'm shocked I got them on the show. The only way that I emailed them and I said, you can make fun of all the Canadians. Will you come on the show? And they said yes.
Except Canadians make fun back. So here's your first question.
Uh-oh.
How much weed had you smoked when you decided to do Thomas and the Bible? Because I'm sure you must have been high as fuck.
No. It was a different time. Let's just put it that way. See, rewind back to 2010 when podcasts weren't really happening as much. And I just thought I was just getting into atheism a bit and reading all the usual people, Dawkins and all that. And I was like, well, this is all incredibly dumb, like how religion has, I don't know, warped my family and just a lot of people I knew was just like, I can't believe how dumb this thing is. So I'm going to actually read the Bible because I never had. And I don't know, podcasts were pretty young, but I was like, well, if I'm going to read it, maybe I'll just read it on a podcast and then like 5 people listen to it and then that'll be that. And then it just turned into something else. Like people started listening to it. I think actually you bring up Tom and Cecil. They were the ones who saw what I was doing and then they put me on the show. And then that really grew the podcast from there. So I kind of owe it to them.
That's exactly how I heard of you.
Oh, well,
Thomas and the Bible.
The same with me when I was transitioning to atheism. I wanted to read the Bible, and your podcast was the first that came up. That's how I.
Wow, that's awesome.
As a kid, I was forced to read the Bible. I actually read 3 versions of the Bible. It sucks. Every second of it. So I'm glad there's somebody out there like you who is reading the Bible for those of us who just do not want to sit there and stare at those fucking awful words.
Oh, well, I'm with you. I don't want to do it either. None of us want to do it.
Well, thank you for your sacrifice.
Okay, second question. What did you use to bribe yourself to continue reading after the first bullshit paragraph of that book?
Oh, see, but I think that I understand that comes from someone who hasn't been forced to read the Bible for a podcast, because the first bullshit paragraph of that book, that's gold. Genesis, like all the jokes that you hear, I don't know, Ricky Gervais or comedians do, every single one, those stand-up bits, oh, Noah's Ark, blah, blah, blah. That's the first, 3 pages of the Bible. That's it. The entire, everything that a lay person, like people who aren't too familiar with the Bible, which, most Christians, everything that they've heard of, like every story that's Old Testament, it's all in the first couple paragraphs of Genesis. It's ridiculous. And then it's just nothing from then on. So the first paragraph is great.
Law.
Yeah. The first 3 books probably cover everything that 92% of what everyone's heard about in the Old Testament. It's really weird. And I didn't know that. So it was exciting at first. I was like, oh, there's so much comedy here. So much I can do. Noah's Ark, it's so funny. It's great. And then it gets so boring that I
the begats.
Cannot...
And the begats.
No, that's not even it. The begats are that's a couple pages. There's some begats. I can handle that. It's more just the sustained repetition of, we're Jews, so we have a prophet or something, like a judge or whatever in Judges. It's the same pattern of oh God, okay, we'll do what you want. And then 10 seconds later, we're going to go worship a golden calf or whatever. Oh, I got to punish you. And just repeat. That's it. The Jews, they can't do what they're supposed to do. They get punished. They repeat. That's thousands of years of Bible right there.
Do you feel, so the other day I was listening and you had the police officer from Chicago on, and she was
different
talking
podcast. About, we should clarify. I didn't have her on Thomas and the Bible.
I know, but you had her on Atheistically Speaking, and she was speaking to you about Thomas and the Bible. And she was saying that she was using it to teach her 8 and 9-year-old sons.
Right.
Off of that, do you feel you achieved what you set out to do with Thomas and the Bible?
Well, I set a very low bar. That's the key to success. What I set out to do was read it. So I think I'm just about, I'm pretty close. I don't think there's only 8 episodes left, and then I'll be all done. So yeah, I think I have. I mean, it exceeded my wildest expectations. It's so boring that I'm amazed that I have any listeners, but I do have a few listeners. So it really did. I'm reading it. There's good jokes in there in certain places. It's just there's so much boring shit that there's nothing to do with. But yes, I think I have. I've achieved the high crowning achievement of reading a book. I never thought I would do it. But yes, I've read this one book.
Part of what makes, I think, the Bible, I guess you made a decision to choose the King James version of the Bible versus something else. It makes the language is kind of at times very impenetrable. And you said you would probably have chosen a different version. Yeah,
that's exactly right. I chose it because I always heard Hitch and Dawkins saying well, you have to read the King James. It's the most poetic. It's the And so I thought, I want to give it my best shot. And I honestly didn't put too much thought into that. I probably should have put a lot more thought into it. I just had no idea how confusing the King James can be at times. It is a real barrier. I kind of regret that. I wish I would have gone with a different translation or whatever. Because it's just, there's so many times where it's what in the world does this mean? It's really difficult.
You're moving on to Thomas and the Quran after that, yeah?
Ooh, well, actually, there's a poll where my listeners are voting on what book I'm going to go to next. And it's a 3-way race right now. If it's at thomasinthebible.com/poll, and what I actually have hidden the results because I want it to be a dramatic, announcement kind of thing. So there's 3, but I did reveal that there are 3 that were in the running, and that was the Quran, as you mentioned, the Dianetics actually,
That sounds very interesting.
and the apocryphal books of the Bible. So those are the 3. It's going to be one of those. I'm not going to say any more. But
Some
determined by
Krishna
voters.
handed me a book on the street, so I might have to start considering reading that one. But you know what? I'm not a masochist in that kind of way. So maybe I'll just mail you the book.
Good idea.
And you can read it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to up my Patreon dollars a bit before I'm willing to subject myself to that. Yeah, send any book and I'll read it.
All right, I have the Seventh-day Adventist book also. I'm going to send them all to you.
So some of the big highlights of your show for me, and probably for some of your other listeners, are this debate and discussion shows. You've moderated some debates, such as the one with Blake Giunta and Matt Delahanty. And you've participated in one, I think, as a debater with Tyler Vela on abortion. In these experiences, what have you learned about engaging and maintaining constructive conversation with people that disagree with you? And do you have any quick tips you can give in that respect? Okay.
Interesting. Well, what a great question. Sometimes people talk about, I'll get good feedback that I'm maybe not to toot my own horn or whatever, but people say oh, you're good at entertaining both sides or whatever. You're good, and it is. I don't really think about it, which is weird. So maybe I just kind of like hearing both sides. Maybe that's just my personality, and so I don't know about. I only say that because I don't know about tips, but I would just say I guess I don't feel threatened by other opinions. I don't feel threatened by. I think people probably get really attached to their views, and which is fine, but I'm not threatened if I have Tyler Vela on and he's anti-abortion. I don't get mad, I don't get emotional about it. I don't know. Maybe that's it, but I think it's interesting. And another thing about debates, I've done a few. I haven't done. I wouldn't say I've participated in an official Oxford style whatever kind of debate where we've got a rigid format, but I do informal debates, and the reason is, and it could be kind of suicidal, but the reason is I just figure if either the person will ask me a question that I can't answer, in which case I guess I'll have to say, well, I don't know, maybe you've got me on that point, or we'll explore it and I'll be able to make some good points against whatever they're saying, whether it's a creationism argument or a anti-abortion thing. I just let the person ask questions or challenge me. Some people have complained that I'm not I'm not going after Tyler enough, or I'm not going after these people. And it's kind of interesting because I certainly respect that style, and there's no one way to do it, but I do my preference is to just kind of let the other person try to make the case and ask questions. Because if you're talking about a debate about God, what do atheists really need to prove? We don't. If someone comes at you with a claim, some ridiculous claim, I don't know, is it about ghosts or about whatever the claim is, I don't need to go after I just need to ask the person, why do you think this? What proof do you have? And they can make all the arguments they want, and it's interesting. So I don't know, I guess that's a long-winded kind of circular answer to it, but I do think that overall being able to explore the other side is important. I wish I had better advice, but it's just not being threatened by the other side. I'm not. So many people are so angry these days, especially when you look at the social justice debate. Whether it's SJW versus anti-SJW, and it's just people are so angry, and I just don't get it. It's weird.
Why do you think they? Because I know me, and I think you have to have a certain temperament to do what you do, and I don't have that temperament. Because when somebody says something that is just blatantly wrong, I had a family member this weekend say to me, well, if evolutionary theory is so true, why are there still monkeys? And I wanted to rip their fucking face off. So
that one is that's a pretty harsh example because it's so dumb. Yeah, so I hear you on that. That's tough. But I mean, if someone says something that dumb, like that ignorant, because it's such an ignorant, obvious talking point. That almost makes it easier because like, oh, okay, I have an easy answer to that. It's almost harder if they have a more like detailed, thought out argument that you're like, oh shit, I have to delve into this. Yeah.
I guess I was getting more at the fact that like having the temperament to deal with the stupidity of some of the arguments, like people who are arguing like in a theological argument when, you know, certain things that have been scientifically proven, obviously you have an answer, but to have to explain it to certain people, and you just, I don't know, your temperament just amazes me.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you what my secret is. I don't have a secret, but somehow I think it's just a personality thing because I get plenty frustrated in my real life, but for some reason dealing with like arguments and stuff, I really enjoy it and I really have patience for looking at all sides of it. I don't know. Sorry. I wish I had better advice.
Part of it, Thomas, what I've observed, at least, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but other times when you know to avoid a specific person who asks you to debate with them or converse, like are there red flags or their personality traits that you can see where the conversation might not be worth having with this person? Or are you willing to engage?
Well, I would say nowadays the show has gotten pretty big, and I feel very it's kind of stresses me out because I feel really anxious about putting out good content. And so I would say the main thing now is that it has to be interesting to the listeners. I actually don't care. Like if it was just me, I would invite any internet moron to come debate something because I just don't care. Like it's either they're going to make a fool out of themselves or if somebody makes a great point, I'll just say, I don't have an answer. That's a great point. And I'll look it up. There's probably an answer or I'm wrong. Like it's just not a big deal. But I would say the bottom line now, maybe a year and a half ago, I would take all comers, but now it does need to be an interesting conversation for the listeners. I don't want to put them through anything that's not going to be good for them.
That's understandable.
But I've invited, when you invite those online trolls to debate, they never show up. It's really weird. The people who I had someone like message my page really angrily. I had some Twitter interactions where someone was giving me a bunch of creationist bullshit. And I was like, hey, do you want to debate? I'll have a debate. I don't care. Let's talk about it. They never show up. It's so weird.
Whenever I have an internet troll or whatever try to say, and then I say, well, why don't you, they say, oh, well, debate me. I'm like, oh, email Thomas Smith.
Cool. That's fine with me.
Yeah. But I'll just send them your way because I know I'll just be like, you're stupid. Shut the fuck up. And that's the episode.
But do you think debate actually changes minds? Like a formal debate, I've heard on numerous formal debates, and I almost seem like each side is preaching, or not preaching, but talking specifically to their audience. And it doesn't seem like there are any nuanced points to persuade someone's mind. I mean, I don't see anybody that's on the fence going one way or another in some of these debates. Is that an issue that you find, or? Yeah, no, that's a good point. I see that too. I think, who knows, 98% of the time, nobody's mind is going to be changed. And I think, but the thing I would say about Christian versus atheist or whatever, religious person versus atheist debates, I would take those all day just because I think the odds that someone who believes in these just idiotic myths, the odds that one of those people might be deconverted or at least have a little doubt introduced is so much higher than the odds that an atheist is going to be like, oh, you know what? Jesus Christ, you're right. He did die on the cross for my sins. Like it just, so I think we're dealing with small percentages, but it's an interesting thing. I think it's definitely a lot less about changing anyone's mind than I think ostensibly you would expect. I really doubt that happens all that often, but at the same time, when you look at it from the point of view of like, well, that guy over there believes in stuff that I just think is so wrong and unsubstantiated. Like what else is there to do but debate him? I don't know, or her, it's like,
yeah, I think it's planting that seed of doubt in there.
Yeah.
I think that is important.
How do you feel about debating identity politics, SJW, free speech, expression of freedom? And which side do you normally find yourself aligning with?
Oh, no controversy there at all. So that's too hard of an answer or of a question. I'm trying. That's one thing I am trying to do really badly. I had Eli and James Lindsay on debating, and I was pretty proud that happened. I don't think much was accomplished, but I would say nothing was accomplished in terms of Eli or James changing their minds. But I did hear from a lot of listeners that were like, oh, that was one way or the other. Oh, that was very interesting and convinced me that maybe this side wasn't what I thought it was or whatever. So I'm really trying to do that because I think that's the biggest divide in atheism right now is SJW versus there's no good names for this stuff, like social justice oriented people versus not. I don't know.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even say that the people that are, as you put it earlier, anti SJW they're not against social justice issues.
Do you have a better name for it? I don't know. I'm honestly I don't know what the names.
Reasonable people.
Oh, okay. Well, sure.
I'm just kidding, man.
You want one that's just, it just gives away everything. Yeah.
I think because I've always been. I think what Dave's going at. I've always been into community service. I started my own charity. I've done tons of charity work in Philadelphia. I have a pretty good resume. I'm all about social justice issues, but I think there's been this SJW definition issue, I think. And I think it's those extremes on the people who are for social justice issues. It's the ones that take them to the extremes that really get offended by every little thing I say that I have issue with. I mean, I think there's bigger things out there than getting offended that I said the wrong word.
I agree. Well, I think that I actually agree with that. And I think that the problem is that both sides just look at the worst of the other side, and so it's you're looking at that, which I agree with. I don't like the worst side of SJW, and then on the other side there's internet trolls who harass and I never asked, can we curse on your show or no?
Oh yeah,
you can say whatever the fuck you want.
There's the biggest thing that kills me about the other side that's not the SJW, because I don't have a good name for it, is that there are people I think everybody in the middle is pretty reasonable. There's going to be people who are middle left, middle right, whatever that means, middle up, middle down, I don't know, but middle out if you're a Silicon Valley fan. But there's the people in the middle don't bug me too much. If you're someone in the middle who thinks like, well, I think we're a little too offended these days, but you're not out there harassing people online, that's fine. That's kind of where I am. I'm on sort of that middle group. But what frustrates me so much about the other side, just because we talked about the bad example of SJW, on the other side, there are people who think it's great to harass people online and to bully them and that if you complain about it, you're the problem, and that women who are harassed online, they should just ignore it. It's no big deal. And it's just not necessary. Like, for some reason, they place a really high value on being able to say really horrible things to anyone at all times.
I think both sides do that, though, Thomas. Like, I've seen online bullying from SJW, doxing of people that weren't bullying in the first place. They're just doxing to be assholes. That's totally fine. But I think on the anti-SJW side, it's sort of more part of the platform. So when you talk about SJW people bullying or doxing, I agree. That's hypocritical and it's counterproductive. Not, to be sure. I'm not saying that's good, and I'm not excusing it. But on the other, what bothers me about the other side is it's sort of part of the platform of the other side, because they talk about like, well, free speech, we ought to be able to do whatever we want. Whereas I agree with the ban on Milo because he violated Twitter's policy. It's not, if he were just out there spouting the nonsense he's spouting, that's fine. But it's the people who are they're hiding behind this idea of free speech for a lot of things, I think. And that bugs me. Like, I'm a huge believer in free speech, but there are reasonable limitations on it. And there are things on Twitter and Facebook, there are policies, there are things you have to follow. And if you're an abuser of people, if you're like and I would put anyone on any side who's doing that. If you're, let's say, quote unquote, SJW abusing people, I would put you in that camp as well. If you're somebody who is harassing people online, I don't have any time for you. And I just feel like it's a little more under the guise of free speech and on the side of the anti-social justice people that bugs me a little bit. But like I said, I mean,
I really am in the middle on this stuff because there's countless examples of like social justice people going too far with stuff. Totally. And the problem is that I don't know how to fix. I think it's so about in-group, out-group with this, that it's just if you're on one side, you hate the other and vice versa. Like, it's just, I'm trying to do something to fix that, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
Because I have friends on both sides, and some people I just have to agree to disagree with to maintain the friendship. And I'm not one of those people that, I don't have time to spend on the internet and argue with people. So I just don't do it. But I kind of wanted to say, we're going off on a SJW tangent. Did you have one more question, Dave?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so it's a lighthearted one. You can relax.
Hey, I don't care. It's your show. I'll talk about anything.
Okay, so marry, murder, fuck. Ann Coulter, Pastor Manning, or Scott Lively?
Well, this is going to be rough. I don't know the last two people very well. Pastor Manning, I think I've heard, what have I heard on Cogdis? I don't know.
Well, you're going to hear him.
Scott Lively is like the super anti-gay guy.
Well, being as how I'm straight and there's one woman arguably on that list.
Are you sure?
Is there? Yeah, I was going to say almost one female. I think that answers that. And then, but that's great. That gives me a bonus. So if I fuck Ann Coulter, I get to gay marry one of the other two, and they will hate that. Yes. And then whoever I don't gay marry, I murder anyway. So it's, yeah. So I need more information about who's more killable.
Pastor Manning, you have to gay fuck him just because he really wants it badly.
He does want it badly.
He's so
I'm not
anti-gay.
fucking him. I'm murdering him. So, I'm marrying him.
Hey, I'm for
either
that
way.
Too. I'm for that too. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'll hope that the rumors about Ann Coulter are false, and I'll fuck Ann Coulter. I'll murder. Let's see, flip a coin. Which one's worse? Who needs murdering more? You guys help me out.
I think Scott Lively implements a more insidious, he actually gets stuff done, where Pastor Manning just spouts.
I like it. So I'll murder that guy, and I'll marry Pastor Manning in a beautiful gay ceremony. He'll love it.
Perfect.
I'm sorry. I actually had one.
May I officiate? Because if it's in Florida, I can officiate because
nice.
Down here,
you're in.
Awesome.
I'm sorry. I actually had one more serious question. So say we weren't talking about the SJW free speech stuff. What would be the number one focus you think the atheist movement would have, or would you want the atheist movement to take in the United States if it were up to you?
So you're saying if we didn't have the distraction of like this social justice divide or something?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, really, I guess it's interesting. That's a whole different debate that I think is interesting, because I don't think atheism needs to be doing much except for trying to fight the bad ideas of religion. I mean, I don't need much out of a movement. And this is interesting because I think it comes down to personality type. So I don't really need a movement. I'm not really a people person. So I don't like look to, I don't go to things, and I have absolutely all the credit in the world to people who do and who get stuff out of that. But I'm more about the ideas. So I just like discussing interesting ideas, and I find that atheism is the more sound position by a million, and the less harmful position by a million. And so I'm interested in propagating that as much as we can. So I don't really, I guess to answer your question, I don't really need like a movement goal per se, but that's just me. Like, other people need different things out of it, and that's totally cool. So I would say
you already do, though. I mean, I think that Atheistically Speaking and Thomas in the Bible are both almost in a way a public service, and in your own way, kind of your own movement.
I actually miss the days of just the atheist versus religion debates. Like, that kind of died with Hitch.
Yeah.
Like that, for me, that was like the heyday right there.
Yeah, and I guess
I never liked those. I never get into debates. I think because I'm a lifelong atheist. So I never, for some people, hearing those debates helps them. So I think debates, it's really, like as Thomas said, it depends on the person.
I don't just mean the debates. I mean the feel of the movement at the time as well.
But that's a great point,
different.
Corey, because it's so funny how, like, for example, my wife was just raised with, I wouldn't even say raised atheist, just raised in the way that if we got to wave our magic wands and religion disappeared, she was raised in the way that everyone would be raised, which is, oh, what? Religion? Oh, okay, well, whatever. Like, that sounds kind of nonsense. Not really.
Oh, that must have been so nice for her. I had to be raised by Christians, and I just didn't.
Well, okay, so that's different. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're lifelong atheist. I thought you meant you were brought up kind of atheist.
No, I didn't know what an atheist was growing up. I just knew that my parents bought us Bibles, and they said, "Oh, well, this and this and this," and I said, "Well, that doesn't make sense." And then I was told to stop questioning, and I shut my mouth and didn't believe. But
there you go. But that does make a big difference, because people who are raised like my wife, they don't have as much energy for, like, why are we arguing about that? It's funny how much different it is for people like you or I who were kind of brought up in it and never really believed it. And then when we embrace our atheism one day, we're like, holy shit, what is all this crap they're teaching? Whereas
also, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to ask you, because I know I'll forget. When you started embracing your atheism, did you get any pushback from your family?
Well, my case is kind of, I don't know how interesting it is, but the men in my family were never really religious and the women were. So it kind of went with my family, but my thing was I always wanted it to be true. Contrary to, like, once again, to mention Hitch, his thing was like, oh, who would want that to be true? Well, me, actually, I just don't like the finality of death and the fact that everything we do just goes away. That kind of sucks for me. And I have a hard time dealing with that personally. And for whatever, colorful language you put on it, it doesn't really work on me. Like, oh, well, memories, or, it's like, no, I'm still going to be dead. Like, and the people I care about are going to be dead. And that sucks. Like, I would rather there be some afterlife. I don't know what it would be. It's impossible to actually conceptualize heaven. It's such a dumbass, creation. No one ever thought it through.
Streets. I mean, how would that work? It'd be way too small.
My favorite thing in the Bible recently, I think I just read a passage that said this, was that talking about, like, and who knows how literally they meant it, but if they meant it literally, it's hilarious. The idea of God sitting in a throne and then Jesus is by his side. Like, how fucking boring is that? You're just going to sit on a throne? Like, oh, I'm God. I get to rule over everybody. Like God would give a shit about ruling over a bunch of humans. That's like saying, oh, I have cats. I'm a cat lover. I get to sit and rule over my cats. Like, no, that's not. No one a being who's that much greater than other beings. And it's arguable whether or not I'm greater than my cats, but I'm smarter by a little bit. And the idea that I would get some huge enjoyment from, like, lording over them, it's such bullshit. It's such a human creation. It's so hilarious. Yeah. Why would a God create people? There's no reason. It makes no sense. That's the one thing. That's the most frustrating thing that I haven't found a good way to convey, that I would love to work on the minute I don't have 16 jobs and no time, is a better way to try to get Christians to see, like, no, why would a God fucking bother with all of this? Because they always say, oh, well, he created us so that he can enter in a loving relationship with us. It's like, no, he wouldn't need that. He's perfect. He doesn't need anything. There's got to be a better way to say that. But anyway, to get back to the point of the question, I would like there to be an afterlife. I wish there were. And so I did struggle with that because I was trying to make it true, but I always knew it wasn't, like I was kind of trying to entertain, like, well, maybe there's God somehow, and just like a deity, like a deist kind of position. And then eventually I was like, no, there's nothing. It's why am I kidding myself? And
you want there to be a good afterlife, though, because what if afterlife was, like, really fucking shitty? Like, you're still conscious, but you're hurtling through space and there's nobody around, and it's just an infinite of you hurtling through space.
Yeah, like somehow your consciousness just survives, but you're just like survives. Sitting in dirt. Just like, in dirt, or you become a rock, like in the Buddhist nothing you can do
reincarnation. You're reincarnated as a rock, and people are pissing on you, and dogs are, that would suck.
But then you would have a rock's feelings about that, which is no feelings. So.
Okay, we're back, and I have a few questions for Thomas. I'm going to assume you remember the Trump episode you did recently?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. I know you said you didn't really want to talk about it anymore, but...
What? When did I say that?
On the thing, I thought you said it was like the last episode you were going to do about it.
Oh, on my show. Yeah, see, that's my show. I'm constantly, as I said, I'm always worried that people are bored of whatever I'm talking about. But this is your show. Hey, I'll talk about anything.
Okay, so in it, you... I don't want to put words in your mouth, so if you disagree with something that I've said, just interject and tell me what you meant, or if that's actually what you said. So you were talking about the Bernie or bust people, and part of what you were saying was that if they vote third party, or if they refuse to vote, or if they write in Bernie Sanders, that they're the ones that are going to be to blame for Trump being elected?
No, I don't think I really said that. I said, look, I think people just are truly underestimating how terrible Trump is. And it's like if a catastrophic event is about to happen, I don't know if I'm worried so much about like, oh, who exactly would be to blame. Sure, morally, the people who vote for Trump are to blame. They are the ones who are electing Trump, and Trump is to blame. Like, those are the primary, morally, the primary parties. But like, now let's talk about what we can do about it, because it's a fucking disaster. So who could potentially do something about it? Well, I'm voting Hillary. That's as much as I can do. I'm asking people to vote for Hillary. That's as much as I can do. People who are voting third party in potential swing states, they are really, really jeopardizing, our future by risking a Trump presidency. So it's not, I don't really think about blame. Like, I don't remember even talking about that.
So I listened to the show yesterday in preparation of this, and at the very bare minimum, you said that they would have to take some of the blame for Trump being elected. You can go back and listen to the show just for argument's sake. I guess kind of the way that I feel about it is that so Bernie's you know what a social democrat is, Thomas?
Sure.
Okay. So the ideals that Bernie presents are of social democrats. It's not democratic socialism, but it's not the same type of democracy that you would see with the DNC. So part of the issue is that those voters that were going to vote for Bernie Sanders don't really get to vote for the ideals that they like. And if you take a moral stance against Hillary Clinton, where I'm not saying that I wouldn't vote for her in the situation that you guys are in, but in being forced to vote for Hillary Clinton, that's kind of taking somebody's democracy away. And I don't mean forced in the way that somebody's put a gun to your head, but I mean forced in the way that you guys have two realistic parties, like the other ones aren't viable. And if you don't vote for her...
why the fuck am I talking to a Canadian about that? Okay, I just remembered. Go ahead. You don't get to vote in the election.
I know I don't.
About
it. Your election is like fucking the Super Bowl here. We grab a six pack and big bag of chips and sit back and laugh.
Stanley Cup, or are you just making it make sense?
I'm making it American for you. I'm Americanizing it for you. For me, a big knock on Hillary. Like, there's a few reasons why I don't like her. The email shit, I don't really give a fuck about. I don't care if she had servers in her bathroom. The lying, all politicians do it. But for me, in Haiti, the textile workers make 21 cents an hour. There was an uprising. They went to the government. The government then went to the textile companies and said, you need to now pay them 67 cents an hour. And you can snow this after the episode if you feel necessary. Hillary Clinton and her department. I'm not going to say that it was all Hillary or it was even all of Hillary's plan.
Are you talking when she was Secretary of State?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, when she was Secretary of State. So she was part of it, and I know that she did a lot of the speaking. She put the pressure on the Haitian government for the American buyers and got their wage put back down to 21 cents an hour. Now, morally, I have a huge problem with that. Like, Trump is a fucking dick, but he hasn't done any of the okay, so he said a whole bunch of really fucking crazy shit, and I have no doubt that his policies would probably affect people in a worse way than the thing that I just talked about, but it hasn't happened yet. right? So he hasn't been able to implement any of the things that Hillary has been able to do, like calling young black men super predators and so on and so forth. And if you're one of the people that do care about the emails, then and a big part of it, I think, too, with the Bernie or bust people is they feel like their democracy was stolen, because whether or not you are gullible enough to believe that Hillary had nothing to do with the DNC kind of conspiring against Bernie or not, the fact of the matter is that the DNC did conspire against Bernie Sanders.
Yeah,
and
the
they
DNC
did bring
conspired again. They didn't want a candidate who's not a Democrat, who's actually an independent, to be the Democratic candidate. I'm not terribly shocked by this. Like, that's not something that, I don't think it's great. And I'm glad that the chairman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz or whatever, I'm glad she is out. That's a positive. But it doesn't. It's not that surprising.
She's right into Hillary's campaign, and after that, Hillary's made her a staffer. So for me, looking at that as a logical thinking person, I'm not going to say 100%, but all signs point to Hillary going to her beforehand and saying, "Do this, and I'm going to give you."
No, it's clear that she's a Hillary supporter. I mean, that much is clear, and I don't know. Is there a candidate who wouldn't have tried to get elected by having a supporter? I don't know. I guess I just don't. I don't think it's great, but I'm not under the assumption that some other candidate would have done anything better. Like, I don't.
Well, Bernie, I don't believe Bernie.
Well, yeah, because he's not a Democrat. So it's not.
But even if
it was the other way around, like, he might have had some super Bernie fan that pulled some strings for him or whatever.
But the voters
DNC was totally against him.
Yes. So the voters themselves, okay, when they go and they vote in the primary, they expect it to be a fair and even process. And when they donate money to Bernie Sanders, they are under the impression that they're getting a fair shake with their money behind their candidate.
They got a ton out of their money. They got Bernie to go way further than anyone thought he could. No one. Okay,
it was rigged against him in the first place, though, Thomas, and they were never going to let him be the
Oh, Democrat. Of course they would have. They tried. It was rigged against Obama in 2008. It was absolutely the same situation. But they would have let, if Bernie had been able to do what Obama did, we would be looking at President Bernie in a few months. It's just he didn't quite have that level of support. I'm curious what specific things that you could mention that the DNC did that actually hurt Bernie. I think there are a few, but I don't think it's anything that wouldn't have been overcome by just voters preferring Bernie.
So
I think the debate scheduling is one.
Yes, the fact that when he tried to register, they said that he didn't register on time when he actually did. Not giving him access to email lists, closing his email list so that he wasn't able to look at his in time, closing voting stations, making less of them so that the lineups were longer. Things. Yeah, see,
I don't know. I would have to investigate these individually, but I don't think that made. I mean, if you do something like close a poll, that should affect the candidates equally if there's a long line, and they still have to get all those votes. I mean, there were difficulties, but it would take somewhat of a conspiracy theory to suggest that all the voters who just so happen to not be able to get their vote in would have voted Bernie, and that it would have overcome the massive vote deficit that he had. Again, it's not good. I'm not saying it's good. It's just I don't really think it's nowhere near the realm of disqualification that I think Trump has done. Trump literally called for someone to kill Hillary. Like he said that's, and Hillary did joke about that.
Hillary did the exact same thing to Obama in 2008. When we're done this, you can
Oh no, I know this one. She said no, it was not the same thing. It was her
she made
referencing history. She said, well, being around in June might be a good idea because of like
but
Bobby
still
Kennedy,
it's still fucked up, right? Like
it's not great.
I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Trump supporter, and gun to my head, I would vote for Hillary, not because like just in the situation where there's only the two of them. she's clearly the better choice. She would hire better or implement better justices, has more experience. Internationally, people would work with her, where I don't really think that they're going to work with Trump. And I know that political parties in Canada have already stated that they won't work with Trump. I guess my point is kind of the main issue that I had with what you said was that you would put some of the blame on the Bernie or bust people. The issue that I take with that is that I kind of feel like democracy wasn't fair to them, because
democracy wasn't fair. It's perfectly fair. So here's the thing.
Can I finish my point real quick here? So whether or not you think that the rigging or the conspiring against Bernie Sanders was significant enough to make him lose or not, it's still the fact that there was conspiring makes it undemocratic to me. Like, as soon as you conspire against a candidate, that's it. The process has been tainted.
And therefore what? Like, because the RNC conspired against Trump the entire time. They did their everything they could do to not have Trump elected. You know who they were trying to get elected? Jeb Bush. He couldn't do shit. He couldn't even beat the what was he, like, fourth? I mean, I don't know what.
You think, like, because they're both doing it, that it's a good thing, and that
I've already said several times it's not a good thing, but I don't get what we're doing with that. Like, what do we? Okay, so granted,
I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair or right to try to scare people into voting for somebody else. The right does it as well. They say all kinds of crazy bullshit about Obama in the beginning, and that you need to vote this way. I like strategic voting for me, like, as somebody, and maybe this for me because I can vote for many different parties, and 4 of them are legit and, like, have seats. Maybe I'm looking at this in a way that an American wouldn't be looking at this. Mm-hmm. I'm fair to make that assessment. That's fine if that's what I'm doing. But I just, like, the strategic voting for me, it's not really, and voting for somebody because you're scared of them isn't really like, for me, it's not a real democratic process. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Well, yeah, but it's the reality of the process. So I could go and just, wipe my ass with my ballot, and that would do nothing, but I guess it would make me feel better. But it doesn't. Don't you have to just deal with the reality on the ground? The reality is, and here's the thing. I suggest if you're not in a swing state, have at it. Let's get the third party to have more support so that maybe it will be more viable in the future. But it really comes down to, like, somewhat down to your philosophy in general of, like, do you have an obligation to vote for somebody who has no chance? And I just think the answer is no, because it doesn't accomplish anything. I'm a consequentialist. I think that the only thing that can happen with, if, let's say, for example, I always directed this toward people who might vote third party in a swing state. Those are the people who matter. I'm in California. I can vote for whoever the fuck I want. It will have no impact on anything. When you get down to it, one individual vote doesn't. But when we're trying to give, recommendations to potentially thousands of people, I mean, that could make a difference. Margins are very slim in some of these elections. But anyway, I could vote for whoever I want. It's California. It's going to go Hillary. It doesn't matter. If you're in a swing state, here's the thing. There's no third candidate that has any chance. You could throw away your vote for no reason, for no effect, and with the only possible outcome that you elect Trump. That's the only possible outcome.
But I don't see it as throwing away your vote, because for me, you should be voting for the person that best you line up with their platform the best with. And
cool. So you do that. You vote for that person. Trump's elected. Do you feel great about that? What does that do for you?
That's democracy. That's how voting works. So, like,
okay, same with the DNC. I mean, people voted. The time to vote for the candidate you wanted was in the primary. A lot of us, I voted for Bernie. A lot of us voted for Bernie, and it wasn't enough, unfortunately. And so now it's a new reality. That reality is done. There's nothing we can do. We're now at a new reality where there are 2 candidates who matter, who have any chance. And it's my philosophy, my opinion, that that's how we need to vote. And it's hard. I mean, I don't know.
I think the Supreme Court nominees are enough to sway me to say Hillary's the choice.
For sure. And
as a woman, a Trump presidency scares the ever-loving shit out of me.
Yep.
I've said that, and I fully agree with that, and I do not support Trump in any way. I have some moral issues with Hillary. She's clearly the better choice. It just, for me, when I hear some of the things that you said, I haven't really been in the situation. So our last election cycle, people did do a strategic vote in Canada. I know David did, who normally votes Green. I've always voted for the same party. I think that Harper was going to get beat either way. It didn't really matter if people did. They should have just voted for who they wanted to vote for in reality. But for me, I find it uncomfortable when either side uses fear as a tactic to get people to vote.
I don't know. I think it's just a question of whether you actually have something to be afraid of. I am terribly afraid of a Trump presidency. I'm not sure why that's bad. You know,
I'm not saying that you don't have the right, or like for you as an individual have the right to be scared of a Trump presidency, but there are people out there that are scared of a Hillary presidency as well, right or wrong. Like I get it.
Really that's why I direct my argument toward these third party people, because I think and I actually did a bonus episode with someone.
I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, that was.
I probably should have listened to that before.
That's okay. It was on Patreon only, so it's no big deal. But it was interesting because she said she wanted to be able to tell her Republican family members who don't really like Trump that much that they should vote for Gary Johnson. And I told her that I don't think that's the correct I mean, she can do what she wants, obviously, but I don't think that's the way to be consistent, because when you look at these Trump supporters, they think Hillary is worse than Trump, obviously. Clearly, they think Hillary is the devil because of, Fox News and all that stuff, and some legitimate concerns. I get it. But they demonize Hillary so much, far more than I think, she deserves. And so for them, it's like, yeah, you're voting Trump. That's consistent with your worldview. I'm not going to try to, what I could try to do is convince them that, Trump is terrible and Hillary's, not as bad as they think. But I could try to do that. I don't anticipate succeeding. So the people that are possibly swayable are those who were Bernie supporters or third party candidate supporters who do understand that Trump is terrible. And there's a way to avoid it, which is to not waste a vote. But so that's why I target those people in my arguing, I guess.
I'd like, for sure, you guys need to get this two-party system sorted out and have like more viable.
Yeah. It's interesting. I read something in the New York Times that was talking about the fact that in some ways, though, a two-party system has a lot of safeguards that other parties don't, because if three parties or more allows a terrible party to only have, 35% of the vote, like, for example, the Nazi party or something, and it allows them to take control of the entire country, whereas in a two-party system, that can't really happen. So it's interesting. I'm not saying that
your terrible party is already one of the dominant parties.
That's
right?
true. That's certainly true.
And you have the worst nightmare possible for a modern day United States or North American period candidate to be is a demagogue with no fucking experience. And that is what
that's absolutely true. But he only has 35-40% of the support, unless a third party jeopardizes that, in which case it would be really bad for us right now. Because if you assume that all things were equal and exactly half of the support for a third party would come from each side, then that would be fine. I'm just not sure if that's true, because
but you would get a lot of the independents, because like a huge portion of Bernie Sanders, like if the independents were allowed to put the ballots in the primary in every state, statistics say, and I'm not an expert, so if I'm wrong about this, I'm wrong about this, but that Bernie would have won in a landslide.
I'm not sure about that. I would highly doubt it, but if you send me something, I'll read it. But
okay, but
Dave,
it's just what
the polls
were saying.
What I would say is just a matter of math. I think Bernie just needed to win some of those southern states, and he just didn't do it.
Yeah, he lost really badly.
He
in
didn't
the
win
South.
California. He won Washington, which is good. He didn't win Florida. He didn't win Texas. He didn't win, the Mississippi. He needed to win that vote.
I know. And I actually changed my registration to a Democrat so that I could vote for Bernie in the primaries in Florida, just because I knew, he had to win the state. And, I'm now back to being a non-party affiliate, but, I thought it was important enough in the primaries to vote for him for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, philosophically, a lot of people were really pissed that, independents couldn't vote. It's true. The states where independents could vote in the primary, Bernie did obviously way better. But I don't know, just if you threw everything aside and just looked at it hypothetically, forget all the candidates, forget everything, and you said, well, should another party be able to vote in a different party's primary? It's like, well, no, that doesn't really make sense to me. It makes sense that you would need to be in the party to vote on the party's candidate.
But you don't here. That's not really the way that it works. You don't have to register as a party affiliate or I'm registering as a Democrat to vote for this person. You just
primaries. How do you?
Well, we don't have primaries. We don't have.
That's why it's a different thing.
Well, I think the primary system is flawed as well.
That's fine.
No, but we in our system, we can vote in many cases. We can vote for the leader of a party and not be a member of the party. In my case in Newfoundland, we had the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador were electing a leader. You didn't have to be a member of the Liberal Party to help bolster one of the candidates. You could vote for them.
Is this the equivalent of a primary? That's the question I have.
Well, yes, because he is the nominee that would go forward in the election. So it would be the same thing as a primary.
Okay, well, I'd have to look at the specifics, but I don't think it's terribly unreasonable to suggest that people in a certain party should be able to decide their candidate and not have it be sabotaged by I don't know, if every Republican wants to vote for who they would rather face in the Democratic primary. It makes sense to have a close primary to me. I'm not saying it's 100% to 0%. I'm saying it's not unreasonable. So it makes sense that some states have that and some states don't.
And I don't think it's unreasonable either. I'm just saying that there are differences that, different states have different, which is confusing to a person that is looking at it, because different states have such drastically different means to.
Well, it is confusing trying to look at it from a bird's eye point of view, but theoretically, like Corey did, you should be able to live in a state and just okay, I just need to know what my state's rules are, and then you do it. So it's, I don't know. I mean, it is confusing to look at every state, but you only have to vote in one, which is presumably a state you've spent a considerable amount of time in, possibly.
Yeah, I've only been here since January. I was
Hey, you still figured it out?
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. I figured it out because it was that important to me. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You said that you went on to the website and it's who do I line up with politically?
Oh yeah, I think it's isidewith.com.
isidewith.com, yeah. So I did those as well, and for me, I'm kind of looking at it, and this isn't an attack on you or attack on Hillary or anybody else. I just want your opinion on this. How closely do you think that the platforms that they have on there is actually what's going to play out? So it just say you sided with Hillary 92% or 93% and with Bernie 89%. How closely do you actually think the stuff that you side with is actually what's going to take place?
I don't know. I'm not sure what else we can measure with, I would say someone like Hillary, it's more reliable. The more experience you have, the more reliable it might be. Someone like Trump, who has zero governing experience, is not tied to any voting record. You can't throw anything out. Oh, when you were Governor Trump, you did that. There's nothing like that. So he can say whatever he wants. And so I don't put a whole lot of stock in whatever he says. And he says contradictory things. He's just not a serious candidate, for fuck's sake. But anyway, I think that affects all candidates, though. I think you're right that sure, maybe a lot of this won't get done. You could argue, I mean, it is their official platform. I don't know how else.
Yeah, but I just think I find that like and I don't mean in a situation with Hillary and Trump. I don't mean to keep harping back on Hillary, but Trump is just so not an option for me to even think about voting for. It's just not even a contention. It's just he's completely out of the picture. I find that people like Hillary in that range of center right, a little bit right, that they run from the left but then govern from center right. So I think it would be interesting to go back after she wins and she has her first term to see exactly how many of the things that you lined up with that she actually happened. Yeah, that actually happened. True. Because then you could know whether or not that site was worthless. Because
it's not the site. I mean, it's using their official platform. So yes. it's the only thing you can use. I mean, it's sure it might be that's wrong. And I think another factor is who's controlling Congress when they're elected. That makes a big difference. If it was all a Hillary presidency and like a Hillary Congress of just all Hillary supporters, I would suspect that the platform that she advertised would mostly be what she went with, barring a few, things change, like specifics on the ground change what you might give as your as your overlying principle.
Well, that was one of the issues.
That's politics. Yeah.
That was one of the issues that I had with Bernie was all the promises that he was making when it was a Republican Senate, right? So like nothing he was saying, I don't think any of the stuff that he's talking about is going to get pushed through.
And he's just totally wrong on GMOs. That's a major thing for me. He didn't make it terribly clear until after he was eliminated, but
I'm going to make it worse for you. He's against stem cell research as well.
He is?
Yes.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. I'll have to look that up. What do you know? What specific? Like, was there a bill that he voted against or something?
Yes, it was an article. I haven't read the article now for about 4 months, but if you just type in Bernie Sanders stem cell, just Google it. There's articles that are up, and one of them I think was stating why Bernie Sanders has lost my vote forever.
To go back to social justice stuff, people on the anti-SJW side might resent this a little bit, but I think it's worth considering that the people who really would be most affected by a Trump presidency are not, white males like me. It's people who may need an abortion. It's people who may want to marry someone of their own same sex. People who, all these things that the Republican Party wants to get rid of. They want to, and it's not impossible. Like they could, if they change the court enough, it could happen, and it's easy. I think the people who have the easiest time saying, oh, fuck it, just throw away my vote are people who I don't think will be as affected as some other people. But just something to think about. It doesn't mean you have to do one thing or the other, but it's something to consider.
Any candidate would be better. I mean, put a rubber boot up against him and you'd have to vote for the rubber boot. Because that's
think of Hillary as a placeholder and focus on next time.
That's my view. I mean, there are a lot of people who say, oh, you say that every election or whatever. And it's like, well, it's kind of true every election. I don't think Mitt Romney was as bad. What's that?
I voted for Obama because I actually thought that he was doing a good job with what he had. I mean, he was stopped at every turn, and they say he used too much executive order, but he didn't use as much as a lot of Republicans. So I don't know. I'd say 4 more years of Obama until we can figure this shit out.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
I think Obama was a good president for you guys.
Yeah,
for sure.
He's certainly the best by far in my lifetime. I'm not very old, but I'm not, and I wasn't even a huge supporter, but I just turned 30.
Oh, okay.
Plus, apparently, him and Justin Trudeau are like having a super bromance. So,
yeah, Justin Trudeau is just a cartoon prince from a Disney movie or something. Everything I see is some viral article about, oh, he saved a dying dolphin and then he whatever. Like is he really that great? Yeah.
No.
Oh my
not.
God, that was so.
He hasn't taken the muzzle off of the scientists like he said he was going to. Harper implemented a no talking to media, and it hasn't been lifted from the environmental scientists. Sure. And the other thing is like they're laying off 500 environmental scientists. And like I said, Canada's statistically, when they look at it, we're warming at twice the rate as the rest of the planet is. So we kind of need those type of scientists right now more than any other. And to keep the muzzle on those ones specifically, it's really suspicious to me. And and to be laying them off at this point. And the other thing is there's been some transparency issues where he ran on being very transparent. Other than that, he's not a bad leader. I really wanted to not like him because I'm not a liberal voter. I'm a social democrat. Like, I'm further to the left in my voting than the Liberal Party. Liberal Party is like comparative to they're a little bit further left than the DNC, but like the Liberals are our DNC. So I really wanted to dislike him more than I do because socially he's done some really fantastic things for equality and stuff like that.
Hey,
thanks so much for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it.
Find you.
Where can they? Right here. I'm here. I'm right here. No, I follow me on Twitter, maybe at Speak Atheism, at T and the B are my two accounts. I do more jokes on T and the B, and then more serious atheist stuff on Speak Atheism, or just Google Atheist. I always say, or iTunes Atheist, and that's all you have to do, and it'll come right up.
Thanks for coming on, Tom, and I appreciate the fact that you're willing to, have discourse with somebody that you don't know from a hole in the ground, critiquing some of the things that you say. Not everybody's going to be willing to do that.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I have no problem with it. I'm interested in good ideas, so I'm interested in finding the best ideas. Sure,
and I understand your position a little better, I guess, because you're actually in this situation. We're bouncing off of each other.
Yeah,
we're on atheistically speaking. You're just speaking, right? So
atheistically, yes.
Yes. So there's nobody retorting or asking questions. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam. My pleasure.
Thanks for coming on, Thomas.
Yeah,
all right, guys.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Bye, guys. Or bye, Thomas.
This was the Wayward Atheist Podcast. Visit our new website at waywardatheists.com. Follow us on Spreaker, spreaker.com/waywardatheists. You can email us at waywardatheistpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at waywardatheists and on facebook.com/waywardatheists. If you enjoy our content, feel free to leave us a review on iTunes, and feel free to support us at patreon.com/waywardatheists.